Hey friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me in my craft room today. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm going to be sharing how I created 3 little mini scalloped note cards using lots of new products from the latest release from Pretty Pink Posh. I have some strawberries and leaves that I stamped with the Fresh Berry stamp set and use the coordinating dies. I've also have some watermelon and leaves from the watermelon set, and of course some lemons and their leaves from the citrus stamp set. Here is a look at my colors that I use to color in these images. You can pause here and take a screenshot. I'll also have them again at the end of the video so you can see which Ohuhu art marker colors that I used. Now I have the new mini scallop card dies, and I use the stitched rectangle to cut out 3 white squares, and then I use some fun colorful cardstock to cut my mini scalloped card bases. But the bulk of today's video is going to be sharing how I created the stenciled backgrounds using the new layering stencils. We're going to start with the first one. This is the layered citrus stencils, and there are 3 different stencils. I'm going to start with stencil A, and I'm going to line it up on my piece of paper. I trimmed this down from a standard 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, so it's 5.5 by 6, and I'm going to use my grid mat and some mint tape to keep that paper in place, and that way I can center my 6x6 stencil right on top of that piece of cardstock, and I don't need to worry about it moving. My glass mat is magnetic, so I'm using my magnets to keep my stencil in place. This first layer A, I'm just blending on some squeezed lemonade distress oxide, and I'm going to completely cover all of my little pie looking pieces here for the different parts of the inside of my lemons. For the B stencil, I'm going to layer that right on top, again using my grid mat to help get me centered, and you can also make sure your circular lemons are fitting inside of the rind or the outside of the lemon. And this time I'm going to use mustard seed. This is a really juicy ink pad, and I don't know why I keep flipping my dome foam blenders everywhere, but they're flying. And I just put off some of the ink on my glass mat, and that way it wouldn't be so juicy when I blended through the openings of this B stencil. And whenever I needed more ink, I just picked that up from the glass mat and kept adding the color. So while this is a little bit darker than the rest of the colors that I use for my lemon mini scalloped card, I like the contrast, and that way I can really see the rind of my lemon. For the final layer of these stencils, I'm going to bring in some stencil paste. This is called Shooting Star Lunar Paste, and I love the yellow. I thought it matched really well with the rest of the colors that I'm using for this card. And I'm just using a palette knife to pick up some of that paste and filling in the little kind of fresh squeezed looking drops from my lemons. And I try not to use too much because I want a nice thin layer so it dries evenly and quickly, and I pick up any excess with my palette knife and put it back in the container. Here is how these lemons turned out. I think they look so pretty and so fun. I love the tone on tone monochrome look of my lemons, and I'll go ahead and set this aside to dry. Now let's jump into my second background. For this one, I'm going to be matching it with my strawberries. So I'm using the layered strawberry stencils, and I'm going to be using, for the first layer, stencil number A, I have 2 different distress oxides that I'm going to be using. I'm going to do a whole first layer using worn lipstick, which is kind of the lighter of the 2 colors that I'm picking, and I'm filling in all of the strawberries and the flowers completely with this color. Now I wanted my strawberries to kind of stand out compared to my flowers, so I'm bringing in picked raspberry and just adding a little bit of extra of this color and blending them together, the first layer of worn lipstick and the picked raspberry, just to give my strawberries a little more dimension. Stencil B, I'm bringing in cracked pistachio, and I'm filling in all of the leaves and the tops of the strawberries. And then I skipped stencil C and went to D, and I'm filling the leaves in with lucky clover. Now I brought back Stencil C for my adding of my stencil paste, and this is chocolate stencil butter, and I'm using this to just fill in the strawberry seeds. I wanted my strawberry seeds to be brown, so I'm using this brown stencil paste and just doing my very best. I took my time and made sure to cover just the strawberries, and then I brought back my yellow stencil paste that I used for the lemons and filled in the center of the flowers. So here we go, a good stencil reveal. This is what my strawberries look like to once I finally got that stencil off of my background. Here you can see how pretty they look, and I just love the details on the strawberries. So cute. And finally, let's make a layered watermelon background. This one has 3 stencils, and I'm going to go in order of A, B, C. So laying down A, and again, placing that with my magnets, I'm using abandoned coral to fill in the watermelons. And then when I get the B stencil layered on, I'm bringing in twisted citron to color in all of the strawberry rinds, but I'm also going to bring back in Lucky Clover, and similar to how I did the strawberries, I'm just adding a little bit of that darker green onto my stencil and then bringing back the twisted citron to blend those better. I just didn't think it had a really even blend, so I wanted to just blend those two colors in a little better. Then I added the C stencil, and for this time I'm going to want black seeds for my watermelon. So I'm bringing in black tie stencil butter, and again, just completely covering the stencil, very similar to how I did my lemons, and completely filling in all of those seeds for my watermelon. I really love how this turned out. It's so fun. I love the shine of those black seeds. All 3 of my backgrounds are now dry. Here you can see I'm touching them all. I'm making sure that I can go ahead and start die cutting. I'm bringing back in that stitched square from the mini scalloped card die set, and I'm able to fit 4 backgrounds using my die cut here. So I have plenty of extra backgrounds for future projects. I'll go ahead and save them with my stencils after I pick my favorite background for each of them so I can use them on today's little mini card. So I have my watermelon, I have my strawberries, and finally I have my lemons. So I'm going to start with assembling one card, and I'm going to show a lot of the details, very similar to how I showed the stenciling of the first project, and then kind of go a little quicker through the rest so it's not too repetitive and I don't keep you here too long today. So I'm starting with my yellow scalloped card. I'm just folding it on that perforated line and using a little scoring tool just to help reinforce that fold. I'm gluing my lemon background to the front of my card, so just using a tape runner, and I'm going to go ahead and add that inside of that stitched rectangle details on my scalloped card base. This is so cute. I'm going to make so many little note cards with this. I'm so excited for this die set. I'm pulling out all of my stamped and die cut images and of course grabbing the lemons for this card. So this is how I normally work on building a scene using my die cuts. I'm just kind of layering them, kind of, definitely a dry run. Don't want to glue anything yet, just to see how I like the card. I have a lot of details on these 3 little cards, so I wanted to fit in as much as I can. These little note cards, I definitely did a more is more on these. And once I'm kind of happy with how they're looking, I'm going to grab my stamp set so I can figure out what I'm going to do with my sentiment. I was originally thinking of stamping and fussy cutting my You're the Zest sentiment, but I noticed that I had plenty of room for the sentiment just to stamp right onto that background, and I wouldn't actually interfere with any of the stencil paste. It will fit very nicely on that background. So you can see here, it just works out so well that even the little juicy parts of my lemon won't even touch the stamp. It actually fits really nicely in my Z. I just felt like it was, meant to be. So I grabbed my Misty and I'm getting my sentiment centered as best as I could on the background, and I'm gonna just stamp right onto it. I did have my, I was holding my breath while I was stamping this, but it ended up coming out really nicely, and I'm happy that I went this way. I'm using a VersaFine Clair ink pad in Green Oasis to stamp my sentiment, and then I also stamped my little sentiment, "Wish I could give you a squeeze," that will be on the inside of my mini note card. So once I'm done stamping, I'll go ahead and glue the inside of my card I'll glue this square to the inside of my card, just using my tape runner again, doing my best to center it inside of the card. I left plenty of room so I could write a little note, or if I gift these, I think this would be a really cute little hostess gift. The card receiver or the gift receiver could add, what they wanted inside of the card. I'm grabbing my foam adhesive because I'm going to do a little bit of layering with my images. So I have my lemon slice, the full circle of my lemon. I'm going to glue that down to my background just directly with wet glue. Same with my leaves. But in order to have the perfect placement of my leaves, I'm going to go ahead and add foam adhesive to my lemon slice, the half slice, as well as the backside of my full lemon where I can see the rind. And I'm adding lots of little foam adhesive circles. I'll peel off the release paper and I'm going to go ahead and place first my lemon on the left, and that will help me know where I can add in my leaves. So once I have that placed down, I'm going to add some wet glue behind my leaves, and I'll grab my tweezers to help me place it. I sometimes, have large fingers, and trying to get them into small little spaces is not always the easiest. So having tweezers ready to use, especially these reverse tweezers where they're closed when you're not squeezing on the tweezers, just helps make sure I can line up my images where I want them. And then finally, I'm adding my last little bit of lemon here, and this will be on the right. I like that my images kind of overlap on the outside of that stitch square, bringing the scene outside of the edges. And that is going to be the first card. I think it's so, so cute. I'm jumping right into the strawberries now, and I'm kind of playing around with my scene. I wanted to show you how I decided on layering this one as well. I thought to myself, I probably should have just used the smaller leaf instead of this set of three, but I really liked the cute little bundle of leaves, but I needed a little more space to tuck in a strawberry. So even though I did use the coordinating die to cut these out, I'm just cutting into my leaf a little bit more, just in between those two, the middle and the one on the right, so I can tuck in my little strawberry a little easier, and that will help me fit a little bit more into my scene without covering too much of my leaves. So I'm happy with how they look here. So I'll set those aside and I'll get to stamping. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment on my strawberry background before I glue it down this time. I was very daring with my lemon, but I am worried that I could make a mistake and I'll be sad. So I might as well do my stamping before gluing it down. And I'm stamping "thank you" right onto that background. I also already stamped the "You're Berry Sweet" sentiment on the inside of my card, which is going to be that white stitch square. And then I stamped "Very Much" on some scrap white cardstock, as this stamp set has a coordinating die. I'm using some mint tape. This is just a repositionable tape, the same that I use when I was stenciling, to keep my die in place while I run that through my die cut machine. And then I'll just go ahead and pop that out. I love that there is a nice little fussy cut look, kind of bubble cut look around my sentiment, and that will make sure I can see as much of my background as possible around my sentiment. So just like I did with my lemon card, I'm adding some tape runner to my background and adhering it to the front of my mini scallop card right inside the stitch details. Since I already have my strawberries kind of figured out how I want to place them, I'm going to add some glue to the small strawberry and tuck that inside those two leaves that I added that little extra cut. And then I will add adhesive behind the leaves and the strawberry and glue that down to my card. I'm only going to pop up the larger strawberry on this card, so I'll go ahead and flip it over and add some of those foam adhesive circles, peel off the release backing, and then I will add that to my card. I'm really liking how these little cards are turning out. I think pun sentiments are so fun, and then they also involve food, which is even more fun. So I am loving these little cards, and I'm definitely going to make more with those extra backgrounds. I'm also going to pop up my very much sentiment, and so I added some foam adhesive behind that as well, and then gluing that just under the "thank you." I'll go ahead and add the inside of my card with my tape runner and then center that as best as I can on the inside. And that will finish off my second card. And finally, my last card is going to be the watermelon card. So I'll go ahead and get all of those supplies ready. I'm going to jump right into stamping. As you can see, I have the Hi Sweet Friend already stamped for the inside of my card. I stamped melon on my scrap paper, and then I stamped Your One in A on my watermelon background. I added my die around the melon sentiment and ran that through my die cut machine, and now I can get to gluing my card together. So I'm going to start with gluing the inside of my card first with my tape runner. I just add it to the 4 sides and then one down the middle and glued that on the inside of my card. And then I will work on the outside. I will add adhesive behind my stenciled background just like I did with all the rest, and I will add that again to the inside of the stitch details on the front of this cute little mini scalloped note card. I'm going to do very similar to how I did the thank you very much card by adding the melon sentiment with foam adhesive, but first I'm going to work on how I'm going to layer everything onto the card. When I finally have a layout that I'm happy with, I'm going to use my wet glue to glue down any of my images that I want to be more in the background. So like these leaves that I colored in to match my watermelon, and then the full out, the whole complete watermelon colored in green to the background again with my wet glue. And then for my watermelon slices, I'm going to add foam adhesive, just very similar to the other 2 cards. I'm going to grab different sizes so that way it will fit nicely on the back side of these watermelon slices, and then I'll go ahead and add them to the card. And please forgive my hair. Instead of moving my card down so I could see better, I totally didn't think about that I would be blocking the camera a bit. But I added the larger watermelon slice, and now I'm adding the small watermelon slice, and then I will finish off with adding my sentiment. I do end up adding a little bit more to these cards off camera when I was taking photos. I realized I needed a little bit more shine, and I really wanted to use some of the new shimmer confettis that were released this month. So I picked some colors that coordinated really well. So like my You're the Zest lemon card here, I did add the lemon shimmer confetti, which you will see in my photo once I'm all done sharing a final look at these cards. For my thank you very much, I'm going to add in the strawberry shimmer confetti. And finally, for my You're a One and a Melon with the watermelon, I'm going to add in the lime shimmer confetti. But I hope these 3 little cards bring you some inspiration today. Like I said, puns and food are my favorite. So I really like how these cute little note cards came out. Here you can see those shimmer confetti pieces on the final cards, and one more look at my marker colors in case you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!